What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. He's Andrew Destin. I'm Noah Hiles. It's Thursday, which means it's time for another Pirates mailbag. You can always read this on post-gazette.com, but as you know, as you tune in, as I adjust this, there we go. Get a little bit of room here.
Come on, spacious.
If you're watching this, you know, you get a couple extra questions if you watch it here on YouTube. So, Andrew, without further ado, let's get into it. Actually, beforehand, we got to talk about our sponsor, Greenewalt Roofing.
Yeah.
We're going to hear more from them later on in the show, but big thanks to them for sponsoring all of the content on this channel. Andrew, let's get into the questions. First one comes from Matt. He wants to know any further word on the plan for Endy Rodriguez. Do they see him primarily as a catcher, or has that changed due to the issues with first base?
Well, as far as we can gather from Ben Charrington's comments, which I believe came on the first day of spring training back at Pirate City, when he basically said that Endy Rodriguez, they still view him primarily as a catcher. Yes, he can bounce around and play other positions, but the plan as of right now, as he returns from the right elbow surgery back from November of 2023, is let him get the time behind the plate, figure it out defensively at catcher as he works back from that into full-time capacity, because I think his best value to the Pirates is as a catcher. So, yeah, certainly the Spencer Horwitz situation, not great, but I don't think that's impacting anything in terms of Endy Rodriguez's position moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen him play any first base yet.
Nope.
In spring. It's been all catcher, and I just expect that to be the focus. Now, if he didn't get hurt last year, I think we would be seeing him get more run at first base. But the reality is they've got to let this guy get back on his feet at his primary position before they let him see any more time at his new position, or his secondary positions, I should say. Next question comes from Mike. He wants to know if we can see Nick Yorke becoming an everyday corner outfielder. I'll start with this one.
Yeah.
I think in the future, yes, I could see that. However, not this year. And that's not a slight at Yorke's abilities. It's just they acquired this guy because of his defensive versatility. They want him to be that super utility bat, kind of in an opposite way of Jared Triolo.
Mm-hmm.
I think if they had it their way, they would have a super utility defender, a Gold Glove defender, and then in that utility role who could play everywhere in the infield. And then you have the same guy, but as an offensive option, someone who can hit and then play a whole bunch of different defensive positions as well. Now, the key to that is if he can hit, and if he can hit well at the major league level, eventually they're going to have to find this guy a spot. And the way the Pirates organization looks right now, the easiest way for him to become an everyday player is in the corner outfield position. I just don't see that happening this year in his true rookie season.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to bring up too, is coming off the true rookie season that, hey, this is a guy who still is learning how to hit big league pitching. If that is why he was drafted back in 2020 as a first-round pick by the Red Sox, who's the hit tool? I mean, you go back to his high school days, there were concerns about his right shoulder, whether or not Nick Yorke was going to be able to throw the ball from shortstop. He played second base for a good amount of high school. He is still building up the arm strength again in right field, left field, those outfield spots. So certainly that's potential. But most recently, I would say that a more clear avenue for playing time for Nick Yorke would be first base. He got his first start there on Wednesday in the split squad day. Didn't go great, had an error in the game, but by all indications, that is a way for him to get playing time. I at least think more, that's a more likely avenue than him being a starting corner outfielder. That's probably a year or two down the line.
We got more questions to answer, but first we got to hear more from our sponsor, Greenewalt Roofing.
Hey, Pittsburgh. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenewalt Roofing Company. With over 20 years experience, Greenewalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense. From rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenewalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenewalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit greenewaltroofing.com today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262.
All right, our next question comes from Running Beam. He wants to know, the Pirates have a 2-1 lead entering the 7th on opening day, and Paul Skeens is at 90 pitches. Who is pitching in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning? This is a very specific hypothetical.
Yes.
Because you could answer this a lot differently if it's not opening day, if it's the 6th inning, if he's at 95 pitches. There's a lot of variables that go into this. But for this specific situation, Andrew, what are your answers?
Yeah, I think in this specific situation, which we can kind of extrapolate, really,
Yeah.
I think at least anytime the Pirates have a lead in a close ball game, I think in the 7th inning, you're looking at a combination of either Kyle Nicholas or Carmen Mlodzinski or some left-handed equivalency. Maybe that's Tim Meza, who also could appear in the 8th inning, where your options are likely Colin Holderman or Dennis Santana. And then assuming everything returns to status quo of 2022 and 23, David Bednar is your closer. At least that's kind of how I see things playing out. And
I think that's how the Pirates want it to play out.
Yeah, that's in a perfect world, which we know is not how this will happen because it is baseball. But that's kind of what they have in store.
Yeah, I think the only caveat is, depending on where Skeens' velocity is at, I think he could start the 7th inning with 90 pitches. I mean, opening day, that seems ambitious. But at the same time, I think depending on how the game's going and if he's on a roll, and if his velo's good, maybe he gets a couple of batters in the 7th. But I agree. I think it's Santana and Holderman are the later the bridge guys to David Bednar. And then if you're looking for additional arms there, you're looking at Meza, like you said, if it's a lefty heavy part of the order coming up, and Kyle Nicholas too. And I think Nicholas can work his way back into a higher leverage role. I just don't think he'll be there come opening day. I think regardless of what happens this spring, he's got to prove it in the regular season.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see on those guys. But yeah, those are some key contributors to look at on the bullpen side.
Bobby's next. He wants to know, with Carmen Mlodzinski getting stretched out as a starter, that has to be a precursor to a trade of one of our young right-handed starting pitching. No, otherwise, Bobby doesn't know why that would be something the Pirates would do. Andrew, you want to start here?
Yeah, I think this is more just a matter of, you've got a guy in Carmen who is a top 40 pick, and he has proven that he's basically capable of everything the Pirates have thrown his way. He can be a bulk reliever. He can be a leverage guy. He can be a spot starter. Let's see if you can milk a little bit more out of that. Let's see if you can stretch him out and see if he could be a starting option for you. Could he be in the mold of, I know this is a drum that, you've beat, and it's a correct one, and that he could potentially be a Luis Ortiz kind of guy this year. There's a number of guys that come to mind like that. But Luis Ortiz was such a success story for the Pirates last year. Why not use that as a blueprint? Maybe Carmen Mlodzinski could follow that. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's a trade coming. I think it just means, hey, this guy has proven capable of everything the Pirates have thrown at him. Why not see if he can't do more?
Yeah, and I think this is something that, like you kind of said, this is a reward for Carmen Mlodzinski. He's done everything the team has asked him to. And I think that's the sign of, I'm not going to sit here and praise the Pirates as an organization, because they haven't had a lot to praise recently. Sure. They haven't been to the playoffs in 10 years. But I think that this is what a good workplace culture does. When you have a young employee who's gone above and beyond, I mean, he's been a successful reliever up to this point in his major league career. You have to give them something else to strive for. And there's no harm in allowing him to be a guy that goes the extra mile and preps to take on a little bit more volume in his workload. And if they need that from him, then that's great. He's prepared. If they don't, then no harm done. He's exactly what he was as far as being in shape for last year, you know? And so I think it's a good way to reward him while also allowing him to stay the player that they need him to be in the short term. A couple more questions here. Jim wants to know, will Mike Burrows start the year in the role occupied by Luis Ortiz last year? More hybrid pitching role talk. I'll start here. I think Burrows fits perfect in that. I think he's one of, as we've talked about, many guys, be it Carmen Mlodzinski, be it Caleb Ferguson, be it Braxton Ashcraft, Mike Burrows. There's a whole bunch of players, or pitchers, I should say, that I think could fit into that role, where we see him maybe make 20 appearances, 5 to 10 of them are starts, and I think they throw under 100 innings.
Yeah, I think he's certainly a candidate for it. But I think for, kind of dovetailing off the previous question, I think Mlodzinski is probably a better candidate for it right now.
Right now, yes.
So with Burrows, I think maybe for the sake of his development, and considering he only pitched in one big league game last year.
He pitched 2 innings.
Yeah.
Yeah, or something like that, yeah.
I think maybe it's to his benefit, considering that he missed all of 2023 with Tommy John surgery. Maybe it's best to have him start the year in AAA.
You're right.
And if he takes on this role, maybe that's a second half thing. Maybe that's a June thing. I'm not going to put a start date on it. But the point I'm getting at is this might not be effective March 27th against the Marlins. Give it some time.
Lawrence starts off our 2 YouTube channel questions. Andrew, since these are YouTube channel questions, I'm going to let you read them off.
Wow, what a pleasure it is. Lawrence asks, what are your thoughts on Sung-Chae Chang? Is he a player who could make the big leagues this year? Noah, you want to take this one? Or
Yeah, I'll start. No. Not with the Pirates, at least. It's just there's too many other options internally. Like on the 40-man roster to begin with, I mean, you have other middle infielders like Peguero, Nick Yorke, Billy Cook, I think would probably get run at a middle infield position, even though that's not his strength. It's just because of the bat. He would get a better look. There's just, I mean, they have Adam Frazier and Manuel Valdez. There's so many guys ahead of him who have big league experience that would be the priority there. He just hasn't really also hit the ball. I'm not saying that. I think he is a big leaguer at some point in time. I don't know if it's with the Pirates. I think eventually this is going to be a guy they kind of kick in with the trade package, because how much longer do you want to have this type of player on your 40-man roster? Whereas, I mean, you look, eventually they're going to have to add Tamar to the 40-man. They're going to have to add other guys to the 40-man. You're going to have to make room for these other people. And I just don't see him being big league ready anytime soon.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because I'm particularly high on Chang. I think he's an excellent prospect, and I love his defensive versatility. He's a guy who can play both sides of the bag. I think he's an excellent defender at shortstop and could be a major league shortstop effective today. Like, he is that clean at the bag despite being 5'7". It's tough to evaluate because last year, offensively speaking, he went outside the organization as far as we know and sought hitting help, and it didn't work out well for him. And then the second half of the year, he came back and was a better player. He put it together offensively. The numbers still looked worse than, what you would like, because that first half really was so bad in Double-A Altoona. He got up to Indianapolis. Where I am most interested to follow Chang is that there's Liover Peguero and there's Isaiah Kiner-Falefa ahead of him on the depth chart at shortstop. Alika Williams too, but Williams, you kind of know what you already have in him.
And he's not on the 40-man.
Right, not on the 40-man. So You would say Chang is ahead of him on the depth chart. Peguero has kind of fallen out of favor. Last year didn't get much big league time, if at all. It was just a cup of coffee. And 2023, he showed some flashes, but he's fallen a little bit out of favor. Kiner-Falefa is not going to be here for forever. So that's a long way of saying I don't think Chang is going to make his major league debut this year. However, I do think he is still part of the plans and could be a shortstop for this team as soon as 2026, because I do think the glove is that good. And could compensate for maybe an average to below average bat.
Interesting. All right, we got one final question. Go ahead and read it off, Andrew.
Jaden wants to know, do we know MLB numbers for potential call-ups this season, i.e. Chandler, Harrington, Ashcraft? How many Pirates are we expecting to make their big league debuts?
You want to start with your guess?
I would say 4.
Okay.
There's a few names that come to mind for me, and it's mostly on the pitching side. I would say it's going to be Harrington. It's going to be Ashcraft. It's going to be Chandler. And then I think we see Matt Gorski make his MLB debut, just based off what we're seeing in camp. But also, it's time. They drafted him a while ago. He was a college bat. He looked solid in spring training. They have a need at first base. I think he gets a shot.
I'm going to go 6.
Yeah.
I agree with all 4 of yours. I'm going to add in Eddie Yeen.
Yeah, he's fun. He could do something.
I don't expect him to pitch a ton in the major leagues, but I mean, you just need a whole bunch of pitching throughout a 162 game season. And I think, he could get his first shot as a reliever at some point. And then I think the last one might not be on the roster right now. It might be a Nick Yorke, Billy Cook type of acquisition they make at some point, just additional roster depth, perhaps a new first baseman, maybe an outfielder, maybe another pitcher, who knows? But I think that it would be foolish to not assume that another move like that could be made at some point this season. So that's all we got. Andrew, any final thoughts as we wrap up this mailbag?
Just that it's another fun mailbag. Glad to get it in the books, and I'm looking forward to us doing this again next week with some additional questions that you can't get online at post-gazette.com. But we appreciate your viewership here on the PG Pirates YouTube channel.
We certainly do. Subscribe if you haven't already to this channel, and check out all of our work at post-gazette.com. Big thanks again to our sponsor, Greenewalt Roofing. Couldn't do this without them. And you will hear more from us today. On Thursday, Andrew will be out in, Fort Myers?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, for Pirates Twins, and keep tuning in for that and more Pirates Spring Training 2025 coverage from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.